Good morning. I'm Laura Tisdall from Viking, and I just want to say, as the mother of 2 young children, I'm about ready for lunch, so it doesn't feel that early to me. I did have a mimosa at 4 a.m. It's my pleasure today to introduce you all to Elizabeth Ames, the author of the debut novel, The Other's Gold. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold. If you don't know that song, which I wasn't even a Girl Scout, and I can still sing a few verses, I won't treat you to any more this morning. What you should know about this book is that this is a book about the transcendent power of female friendship. It's a book that immediately drags you back to that feeling of the intense friendships you had during your school years and the way that those friendships have carried you through your life. As the book opens, 4 young girls arrive for their first day at college, and the suite that they enter and that they're going to live in for the next 4 years has this lush bay window with a velvet cushion in it, and the 4 of them find themselves together there. And what we, the reader, soon find out is that each of the girls will make a mistake, and that those mistakes will pull their friendships apart and knit them back together in ways that will show us exactly how important our friends are to us and what we can forgive in ourselves and what we can forgive in others. From its very first pages, I knew that I was going to love this book because I loved these women and because even just the title took me back to that feeling of friendship that I think we return to again and again throughout our lives. But by the time I finished, I knew that this unforgettable story was destined to join the ranks of novels like Commencement by Courtney Sullivan, Prep by Curtis Sittenfeld, and The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer. At a moment when so much that we're choosing to read, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, grapples with and educates us to face an ever-shifting political and cultural landscape, it was such a joy to fall into a world of a novel that feels timeless, that takes me back to those friendships that my mother knew and that I hope my daughter will one day know. Yes, the young women in this book are living through college now, so their lives and the book touch on the issues of the day. But the focus here is friendship, the love they share, the laughs, the fights, the support they offer each other, and it allows this novel to transcend the noise of our daily lives. It's the novel that you hope people will find in a library, the kind of novels that I remember finding in a library, not caring what year they were written or who they were written by, but seeing myself in its pages. Without further ado, Elizabeth Ames.
Thank you so much, Laura. That book sounds so good. And thank you all so much for having me. As Erin mentioned, baby's first book event. This is this baby's first book event, and I'm so, thank you. I couldn't be happier that it's in the company of these wonderful writers and all you amazing librarians. So thank you again for having me. And for joining so early. I'm traveling with a 2-month-old, so there's like little meaningful distinction between early and late and even day and night. So I'm happy to be here, and we'll have that mimosa after. When Shannon told me about this opportunity to speak to you all, I got so excited. I love libraries, and I started talking to my husband about all the libraries that had been meaningful in my life. I went on this 8-minute monologue, and he at some point he said, you might want to mention your book in there, just get it in. And so I will mention my book. But I did want to talk about libraries, and I mentioned to Shannon that my library card, which I brought, the Cambridge Public Library, is anyone here from the Cambridge Public Library? Well, woo, shout out, just Cambridge Public Library, I love it. This is my library card. It's covered in these Friend of the Library stickers, and you can see they're in this neat little grid. And so I know that maybe some people put each sticker on top of the other, or maybe they peel one off, but I wanted to spread mine out so they could all be seen. Like how cool kids come back from winter break with their lift tickets still clattering on their ski jackets, wanting to make sure everyone knows what they did over break. And that's like me in this library card, though I'm not sure precisely who I'm trying to impress. Because I guess you all, because I use the app on my phone to check out books, so even the librarians who are already, as you well know, friends of the library, don't see the card. But it's always with me in my wallet, like a photo of a friend. But more than I am a friend of the library has been such a friend to me. When I first moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts, nearly 9 years ago, I promptly lost my keychain wallet with my fresh, hard-won Massachusetts driver's license, my credit cards, and my new apartment keys. I had signed up for a library card even before I got that license, And when I heard my name called over the library loudspeaker and arrived to find my wallet waiting, the rush of relief I felt at not having to return to the Massachusetts RMV was profound. But even more, I was grateful for a feeling that here at the library I was among friends, or at least friendly people. I'm a Midwesterner, born and raised in Wisconsin, Wisconsin, that got a shout out, okay. Where it's hard to get through interactions at places even as tedious as the DMV without a volley of friendly chatter, and I was finding my adjustment to frosty Boston a bit rocky. I felt frankly too friendly, too loud and too affable, some kind of dope who bumbled through the buttoned-up, bow-tied obstacle course of Cambridge looking for the soft landing of genuine small-talking warmth. I found that warmth at the library, especially, at first, at my pocket-sized branch, the Boudreaux Library, where, in particular, the late branch manager, Linda Haynes, treated me like a friend and made me feel like I belonged. I miss her still. 2.5 years ago, we moved away from the Boudreaux branch and into the heart of Harvard Square, into a Harvard dorm, no less. My husband took a job as a resident tutor, and we moved with our then 6-month-old baby into a dorm room that is a smidge bigger than the apartment we moved out of. And I always say that speaks more to the absurdity of Cambridge real estate than the extravagance of Harvard dorms. But nevertheless, they're both interesting. This move also meant access to more libraries. And it's been determined that there is only one place in the greater Boston area where you are more than 1.5 miles from a Dunkin' Donuts, and that's in a cemetery in West Roxbury. And in Harvard Square, I thought, there's like a library, there's so many Harvard libraries, there's more branch libraries. I was so spoiled for libraries. Not only was the glorious main branch of the Cambridge Public Library now my nearest one, but I also had access to the Quincy House Cube. Quincy House, as I mentioned, was the name of the dorm I had moved into. Cube with a Q, they love to use the Q. And that's the library that was attached to our dorm, or house as they're called at Harvard, where every single house has its own library. And it was in the Cube where I began to write my novel, The Other's Gold. Looking at my notes, I started in earnest just as the school year began, buoyed by that back-to-school energy, and enabled by the caretaker who began for just 2 hours, 3 times a week, to watch my 7-month-old. The Cube was, of course, my very closest library, and I would go in the late morning when most students were in class. So called because it's this giant cube of windows, a double-decker of dusty books, a worn woven rug as big as my apartment/dorm in the center of the room. Sometimes the only sound animating this beautiful space would be the clacking of my own keyboard and the clanking of ice cubes in my thermos of iced coffee, weak tonic against sleep deprivation that haunted me then and returns to me today. I could look out the windows into the courtyard and watch students travel in close clusters, the inseparable groups of friends who inspired the foursome at the heart of The Other's Gold. The book follows Alice, Jisun, Margaret, and Lainey from their freshman year at Quincy Hawthorne College onto their post-college life and days as new parents, and it's structured around the worst mistake made by each one during this intense, transformative time, a stretch of life I was right in the midst of, figuring out how to be a parent and forming my own little family as all around me, students forged families of sorts as well. I like the energy of working alongside the students, driven and ambitious as they are, but there is also something so decadent and marvelous about having an entire beautiful library to oneself. On one such day, writing going poorly or wonderfully, I don't recall, I perched my computer on top of a display case where it probably should not have been, set the timer, and took a series of indulgent selfies of myself dancing around in a new dress in celebration of the exhilaration and terror I felt at being away from my baby, working on something that excited me, alone in this beautiful, huge cube of dust and sunshine. As the baby got older and my novel gained momentum, my library perimeter grew, and I began to work on the book at the main branch of the Cambridge Public Library, conveniently equidistant from our dorm and her new daycare. Some days, I would drop her off and get a coffee, arrive at the library just as it was opening, wait outside with the small crowd that usually gathered, eager to get in. And this library looks like one of those architectural models. There's like the old-timey 1888 building, and then there's this sheet of glass, and people are always doing exactly what they do in architectural renderings. They're having picnics, playing tennis, chasing children, walking their dogs, and of course reading. On the lawn, in hammocks they strung up between trees, on benches, and even while walking. That wonderful sight these days, a person with their nose buried in a book. Once inside, I would have a snack in the modern half of the library and then move to the reading room in the old-timey half, where they have those green reading lamps that mean business. I would close my tabs and get to work. After a long stretch away from both libraries, during which I spent more time on the children's floor of the library than alone with my computer or a book, I returned to the Cube to work on this talk. As I write this now, the room is filled with students hard at work on final papers and projects, There's a whiff of stress stink and the specter of final exams. Outside in the courtyard, students who have finished are hauling boxes into storage, embracing their friends, saying goodbye for the summer, goodbye for now. When they return in the fall, I'll hope to have moved again to the public library, where by then, The Other's Gold will be on the shelves, a life dream realized. I hope the readers who chance upon it, or are recommended it by some of you, will find friends within its pages, friends like the ones I watch now from my window, whom you clutch close, to whom you can hardly bear to say goodbye. Thank you so much.